plain brushed vessels with these little high crust kind of rims on them. And the other ceramic of this time period is those crosshatched rims, but they're very poorly executed. They're real sloppy. Now this chronology I'm giving you is based on work by Brad Logan from 2006. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. So it's located north of Kansas City. Kansas City's down here. It's on Lime Creek, where Lime Creek outfalls into the Missouri River floodplain, which is here. You can see it sits back on the bluff line. This is an early map of the site. The dashed line shows you where the site is. A couple things to point out, because we talk about them from time to time. Junton Branch is the creek which borders it on the north. Lime Creek on the east. There's a road that runs through the middle of it that says 169, but it's actually 69 now. This little building down here, that's a radio station. That was from 1943. This is Leslie Renner's house. This is the Renner site, Renner. And this here, this little triangle, that's his chicken yard. And that's going to play an important part in the story of this site. Here's that little radio station. Here's the Renner house in the background. And you can see this remnant terrace right here. This is what the site sits on. It's raised up above the floodplain. I want you to notice, though, that it has this distinctive slant from north to south. It's dropping down. Now, the first documentation we have of the site is from a guy who is an amateur archaeologist that became a semi-professional archaeologist in Missouri. His name is well-known. Archaeologist of the area, wrote a lot. Now this is his logbook. When he was younger, he collected serpents, and he kept a logbook. So we see artifact number 113 is a scraper or a knife. He added PL1 as a site number later. And I think that's supposed to be Coyote Flats, but okay. And it's on Leslie Renner's place, and this is dated May 2nd, 1920. And there's that artifact. This is the very first documented artifact from the site. It's got 113 and the date on it as well. Now, after he found it, between 1920 and 1937, there are some major impacts that happened to the site. The first is that Great Lakes Pipeline installs 3 pipelines through the middle of the site. That's this corridor right through here. You'll see that on every map I show you pretty much from here on out. And the other was the construction of what they call Vivian Road, or Highway 69, that begins in 1936. So here's the 1935 quadrangle. There's Renner's house. There's the little radio station. And you see the road goes between it, and then the red is where the site is located. So in 1936, they start construction. So by 1940, that road cuts right through the middle of the site. Again, here's the radio station, the Renner house, and this new road. No archaeology was obviously done for that road project back in the 1930s. This photograph is also from 1936-37. You can see there's the bluff line. This is the Missouri River floodplain out here. There's the little radio station, the Renner house, and the site sits right here. You can see that new road being constructed right through the middle. This is what it looks like today. And I'm standing looking north. And what I want to show you is how much that road has cut into that landform. That's a pretty deep cut. They've obliterated everything in there. On this side of the road is a park. It's called Renner Park. And it now preserves pretty much 50%, 60% of what's left of the site is in that park. And there's a little path with archaeological signs to tell you what's out there. The other thing to notice is those 3 markers there, that's the gas line that they put back in the 1930s. So, what I wanted to do when I first got on this project was to figure out who did what, when, and where, and how much they found. So, we did the GIS, we're going to make a map. Now, the park, you see this fence line right here? The park goes from here to here to here. It's this area here. This is a private residence, the Renner residence. This is the walking path through the park. So, Shippey, I use his logbook, Apparently he collected that site every fall and spring through the 20s, 30s, 40s, and into the late 50s when he stopped. And in 1936, when they put the road cut through, he digs the first pit out there. And so, unfortunately, we don't know where he dug the pit. So all I can do is put a dot in the road. Okay, he's got one pit in the road. Now, Shippey's excited about this site, so he writes the Smithsonian a few months later, in February of 1937, encouraging them to come and excavate and investigate the site. So he gets a response, there's some interest. In the meantime, in May of 37, he digs a second pit in the road cut. Again, we don't know where it was, so we're just going to put a dot on there. Now the Smithsonian is interested, so they reach out to one of their employees, a guy named Dr. Walter Wadle. Wadle got his PhD from the University of Berkeley in 36. He starts working for the Smithsonian that same year. His entire career is spent at the Smithsonian. He's considered the father of plains archaeology, mostly from his work in Kansas and Nebraska. So Wadle comes out, he's interested, so he comes out in 1937 in May and visits the site. Now, remember I said the second pit got dug in May? I don't know if Wadle was there for that or not. He may have been. So Wadle's excavations begin in June 5th of 37 and wind up on the 26th, close up on the 26th. He's only there 3 weeks. So Shippey gets to work with the crew. So this is the crew. There's Slattery, Shippey, Orr, Stabler, Kiblet, and the dog's name is Prado. So while they were there, they stayed in the radio station. So they were camping out there. So we couldn't, not much in the way of facilities, I'm sure. So they excavated 35 pit features during that season, those 3 weeks. A couple things I want to show you in this photograph I'll point out. Notice there's a pile of stuff here, and a pile of stuff here, and a pile of stuff there, and there's one back there. They're not collecting everything they did. They're selectively collecting out of the pit features. The other thing is, if you notice, everybody has pit helmets. So I guess the Smithsonian crews all got pit helmets. So Wadle publishes the results of this work in 1943 and includes this map, which you've already seen. There's the pipeline again, and all his excavation blocks and features. The other important thing he does in 37 is he establishes a site datum, which is about there. It's at the bottom. We'll see it on later maps. And almost everybody else that works out there uses that datum, which is great, because now we can bring them all back together under one mapping system. Now, if you're a fast count, you'll notice there's only 34 pits on that map. That's because the 35th one is out here in the road. They dug a third pit in the road cut. This road cut was pretty productive. So we can throw those on our map. Here you can see his datum down here from 37. Now, that work was completed, did I say it was July? Yeah, June 26th. So in October, Shippey goes back on his own. And he digs on the north side of the chicken yard. See, this is the chicken yard. That's where they were allowed to dig in 37. So Shippey digs those. He digs these two down here, and these 2 units right here. Don't know if he ever found any features or not, but he was excavating there. So that was October of 37. A couple months later, January of 38. We've got to put those now on the map. Sorry. Put those way out. Father Felix, Nolte, and Shippey dig a pit in the road cut. Another road cut. There's you got Father Felix and Shippey holding this nice cross-hatched rim shirt, classic Hope Welder vessel. Here they are, Nolte and Shippey holding that same shirt, and you can see them standing in a hole. Now, the only advantage we have here is that this background, that's the bluff line on the west side of the valley. So I know that that pit is now on the west side of the road cut. That's as close as I can get. So we can throw that pit back on the map as well. Then we go to Radel and Howard in 1954. Leo Radel is associated with the Science Pioneers of Kansas City. He leads the 1954 expedition. Notice he too has a pit helmet. I was kind of upset because I didn't get a pit helmet. This work is sponsored by the Kansas City Museum. And when I started this research, I was all over the place asking people about different things. And I got an email from Diana Cavanzano Schramm, who says, I hear you're researching this. I was on that 54 crew. And she was able to give me a lot of information. This is Diane back here holding the shovel. She's probably about 14 years old at the time. But she was full of good information. So that work starts in June 54 and ends in early August of 54, so it's 5 weeks long. And they excavate 15 pit features. Now here's the map of their work. Again, if you're a quick count, there's only 14 circles on the map. For some reason, they didn't draw one that's down here. So there's actually 15. So we can add those to our map now. Then, that was early August, that was over. Late August, Shippy's back on the site again, 54. This time, he learns that they're going to put a new pipeline in. And what they did is they come along the south side of the existing corridor, cross the 3 existing pipes, and come on the north side. So he's out there examining, looking at that trench, finds and excavates 8 pit features, and draws a profile of some partial profile of the trench. So here's that new pipeline, comes, crosses the top 3, and then heads off that way. And the pits, there's 1 there, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pits. The interesting thing is, this line right here, you see this A, right? 50's down here separate because 50's on the other side of the ditch, right, from its profile. But if you follow that down, that sure looks like another pit sitting there. But he never dug it or gave it a number, so we can't count it as a pit feature. So we can add those to our existing map here, all the pits and things that have been dug out there. That was a couple months later. He's back again. This is in November of 54. This time he's working for the University of Missouri at Carl Chapman, and does some testing out there. He's looking for hot spots on the site. Is what he's doing. He excavates 16 5-foot by 5-foot units. That's all these plus this guy down here, and 11 2.5-foot by 2.5-foot units. And then he also excavates 3 features. They're difficult to see, but there's 2 there and 1 over here. In the late 60s, Philip Bourne completes a nomination form for the National Register of Historic Places, and in 1969, it's put on the National Register. This is a monument that's sitting out in the park to memorialize that event. Now we jump to the 1980s. 1982 and 83, Maplewood Community College conducts field schools out there in the spring and fall under the direction of Dr. Walter Burks. And a guy named Gary Renner helps him with that work. Why? This is Gary's backyard. Okay, they're digging his swing set back here. Gary has an interest in this site from way back when. I'll get to him in a minute. But he does such a good job that Burks steps aside, and Gary directs the field schools in 84 and 85. Okay. So, as far as I can tell, the 82 and 83 work, they dug 3 pit features. There's 2 down here. Behind this is the house, so it's right behind the house in the yard. And they also dug this weird cross-shaped trench up here. There's the 1 pit in there as well. Here's Gary. Now I asked Gary, I said, Gary, send me a picture of you that I can use in talks. This is what he sent. This is on here. Gary Renner is the great nephew of Carolina Renner. So a Brenner married a Renner. So you get this Brenner mixed up all the time. He eventually purchased the old farmhouse and part of the site, part of the land that contained the site. And then he started, because of an interest, excavating in his yard and in the field. He ran into J. Med Shippey one time, and Shippey started giving him guidance on how to dig, because he's digging, he had dug with Wayland 37, and many years after that as well. But anyway, he teaches Renner how to dig. Unfortunately, he teaches in 1937 methods. So everything's in inches and nothing matches up anymore. But we'll get to that. Anyway, Gary's big contribution, however, is that he gets himself elected to the city council for the purpose of having the city buy what remained of the site and converting it into a park. It's the park that's there today. So we owe Gary a great deal of gratitude for that. So what does he do? He's there from 1980 to 2003. He excavates units in 80, 81, 82. He gets the Maplewood Field School in 84 and 85. And then he excavates what he calls the sidewalk area in 87. That's this hole. You can see there's a series of stakes through here. That sidewalk never got built, by the way. So this is the sidewalk area. That's Gary poking his head out of the hole down there. Then he excavates 2 units in 87 at the monument location. You can see the monument sitting back here. That's a National Register of Historic Places monument. They also dug a test unit in the front yard in 2003. Now this shows up on Gary's website, but there's no information about it, what he did there, what he found, or anything. He publishes articles on his excavations in 1985, 1986, and 1990. As far as I can tell, Gary excavated about 30 pit features at the site over the course of his career there. So now we can add those to the map. So here's the sidewalk excavations, and the monument excavations, and then some stuff he did out here in the fields. That one's we'll come back to. This he called his garage excavations because he wanted to build a garage. So at least he dug on it before he put concrete on it. And then that's that 2003 one we don't know anything about. So between 2000 and 2009, again, major impacts to the site. So this is 1991. There's Jumping Branch, Lion Creek swinging off to the southeast here. Can you make out that line right there? That separates this yard from the park. Now remember on the map, the site goes all the way out across the north to this side here, right? And around the house. So about 2004, the city begins to build municipal complex on the north or the west side of the road. So that's that. You can see all of this here is new and built. No archaeology was done for that. They destroyed half the site. You'll also notice that Lion Creek no longer goes to the southeast. It's channelized and goes off here to the southwest. So that was a major impact to the site, obviously. So 2009, this is where I come in. We were contracted to do some salvage archaeology ahead of them relocating that playground up onto the terrace. Okay? So Steve Dasovich served as the principal investigator, and the site director. I was kind of a co-director. Right next to this, he said, "Well, why are they going to move it?"
The city contracted you?
Yes, the city of Riverside, Missouri, because they own this. This is their park. Right next to this, over here, is a skate park, skateboards. So the mothers were complaining that the language coming from the skate park was not good for their children, so they decided to move this up to the top of the terrace. So that's why we get to go play. So this is the site where they're going to put the playground. Notice how nice and flat, smooth that is right there. Wadle's excavations are right off the screen from 1937. If you look through the trees, that's the Renner house. We're looking south. Okay. Now, as soon as we started digging, we got into some strange deposits. And first of all, that is a scraped surface. So add another 20 to 30 centimeters on top of that. So that means that to get down to the subsoil, which is this light color stuff down here, that's almost 80 to 90 centimeters deep. What's interesting is, you see these little dips here? There's one there, and one there, one over here. You see those? Those are plow scars. Okay. So who's plowing 90 centimeters deep? Something's going on here. So I had to figure out what the story was. My first clue came from Shippey again in his journal. This is a sketch map he made in 1945 in his journal. Here's the house, the chicken coop, and here's got Wadle's excavation sketched on there. And he's got this little blob here. Can you read what that says? It says low area. Okay. That's exactly where the playground's supposed to go. Okay. And then, reading closely in Wadle's 1943 publications, he says, about 50 yards still further east, an inconspicuous depression drains southward, giving a slightly saucer-like conformation to the terrace. This low spot appears to be almost devoid of artifacts and debris. Again, this is right where the playground is supposed to be. Gary sent me these photos. We're looking kind of southwest. That's the Renner house in the background. And you can see that tractor sitting right in the playground, where the playground is supposed to go. You can see it's really sloped. And almost make out there's a shallow depression. It's just soil. And he sent me another photograph of the same tractor, the same place. And you can see how slanted that landform is. Now, if you remember back from that first photo I showed you of the park location, that's flat. So what they did when they built the park, and I've confirmed this with Gary since, is they cut all this high ground off and pushed it down the hill when they built the park. Okay. So that explains why I have 90 centimeters of clouds over there, or if they're sort of filled. What really told me, though, was that when they did this, when they cut this off, they probably impacted features and some midden and all that material that had been in there, and they would have spread it down this slope, right? This is our piece plot map. Now, we only piece plotted points and rims. So all these little circles, that's only points and rims. That's not flakes, that's not body shirts. That doesn't look to me to be devoid of artifacts, right? This is evidence of them shoving that dirt over on top of this and leveling out that park area. So eventually, when we got down through it, we got 5 features, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. We have feature 9 here, but that feature was partially done by Gary Renner in 1982. He left about that much at the bottom of it. We were able to spot that and dig that out. We also got a trace of that cross-shaped trench I showed you earlier from Burke's work. We actually were able to locate that as well. Now, before I start into our stuff, shout out to Jack Ray, who did the chart identification, Marge Schrader did the botanical analysis, and Terry Martin did the zooarchaeology stuff for us. So, feature 1. Nice profile of that. A circular basin. Ceramically, it's early. It's Trowbridge phase. Feature 2, nice circular bell-shaped pit. Ceramics in that, it's a kind of mix of Kansas City and Edwardsville, so it's probably transition. And then we have feature 3, which is an oval cylinder. Ceramics in that are all late, so that's the Edwardsville phase. So we've at least got features from all 3 phases going. Now, we did get a calibrated median radiocarbon date of AD 360. Now you should go, wait a minute, Don. Earlier you said Edwardsville phase starts at 400. That's too early for a date. Recent work by Keener and Adair, they reevaluated the Kansas City Hopewell radiocarbon dates. We got a whole bunch of new ones from carbonized food remains on the inside of the ceramic vessels. And they said the whole thing is too far. We need to shift it back in time about 100 years, which would put the Edwardsville phase starting at 300 instead of 400, and my 360 date fits right where it's supposed to be. Now, feature 3 yielded some really unusual non-shirt artifacts. For example, we got an Adelano weight, or boat stone. This is sandstone. And then we got this pile of stuff. All right, so that's 360-odd pieces of hematite. And I thought, okay, well, that's some object that's blown up. It's been probably tossed in the fire, and the whole thing exploded and produced all these shirt. You can see there's polish and cut and grooves on them, really polished up. And I thought, okay, I like puzzles. I'll go for it. Well, my first problem was that I realized not long after I started, was that there are at least 2 objects here. First one is this, just a lump of hematite that's been rubbed and polished and ground on one side. And the other was this thing. Okay? Now this is, as you can see, very well made, highly polished, very well shaped. And if you look at it, you go, okay, that's an axe, right? Looks like an axe. You got the pole end back here, and the bit end, this nice curvy part here, right? It's not. If you look at the end of it, where the bit should be, it's squared off. It's flat. And the sides come down parallel all the way to the bit, to what would be the bit. So if you were looking at an axe would come down and then it would start to bevel in to get to the point, right? This goes straight all the way to the edge. So it's not an axe. So the idea is, happy to listen. We also got this guy. This is a preform for a platform pipe. It's made from siltstone. And you can see where they started to drill the mouthpiece hole. And that's probably when it broke it. That's probably when they went, and threw it away. Feature 4 was a small oval basin. Didn't have much in it. We couldn't even figure out how old it was or what it dated to. And then feature 6, we have a circular cylinder. The ceramics in it are pure Kansas City phase. We have this nice crosshatch rims with conical punctates. And we've got a calibrated medium radiocarbonate of 18147. Again, that fits perfectly into the new Keener and Adair system. One of the more interesting things that come out of this print was this little shirt. It's about this big. But it's from a quadrilobate vessel. Everybody know what that is? Okay, so you're making a pot and it's round. Right? If you take and put your hands on the side and push it in opposite, and push it in opposite, it kind of squares. Right? And it gives it what we call a quadrilobate. It's almost squared at the shoulders. Very typical of Middle Woodland stuff and Hopewell stuff. It's decorated on the shoulder with the zone decoration. You see the zone right here. And it's got plain rocker stamping on the inside. It's super thin. This vessel is only about this big. It's less than 15 centimeters high. So I had the geologist at SCI look at this and I said, look at the grit temper in this and compare it to the grit temper that's in these other shirts from the site. And she concluded that that's not the same, that this is different. So this is likely a vessel from somewhere else, very possibly from the Illinois Valley. Now, in 1937, Wadel also found a quadrilobate vessel with the same pattern on it. However, this one's almost twice as big as the one I have that we found, and it's usually more crudely done. But there are actually, I'm doing my research, there's like 3 or 4 of these with the same shoulder decoration on them, and all quadrilobate vessels. However, feature 6 yielded these 2 things. Probably the most important artifacts to come off of feature 6. Anybody know what they are? They're mud dauber nests. Okay. Yay, right? Okay. In archaeological context, when you find a mud dauber's nest, you really guarantee yourself you've got shelters, you've got buildings, and houses, residential structures. And you can see, because the mud daubers build on the thatch of the roofs, right? And you can see on the back of this one, you can see the parallel lines here where it was attached to the grass in the roof. Why is that important? Because of all of this excavation that's happened out there since 1920, nobody's found evidence of a structure. There are little circles of posts, small enough to be a residential structure. So this is the only evidence we have of residential structures at the Renner site. Okay, got some interesting faunal remains out of feature 3 and 6. Feature 6, we had 4 bobcat flanges. Flanges are fingers and toe bones. Okay. And we got the distal end of the femur out of feature 3. Wadel also got bobcat bones in his 1937 excavation. Think they're eating bobcat? Probably not. Not a common, although there is ethnographic evidence of using bobcat for food. What they're after is the pelts. Okay? And so I got some photographs of people wearing bobcat outfits. This one, a Navajo man wearing a bobcat face for a hat. There's a Sioux young man wearing a bobcat cape. But my favorite one is this guy. This guy's a Pomo Indian from California. He's got a bobcat cape on. Now the interesting thing is, see, it's still got its teeth in, and the skull seems to still be in the cape. Oh my goodness. Okay. Also, the claws are in there, which means probably all those phalanges are still in the cave. So it's very possible that what we excavated was not a food item, but remnants of a clothing item. So now we get to add SCI's work to the map, and then we add all of them. This is all the excavations and features that have been conducted in that site over the years. So who's been keeping count? You're keeping it running, Callie? They give you the number? No. 102 pit features have been excavated, as far as I can tell. So, what are some of the important, fun things to find? Now, these are not important, necessarily important, they're important or interesting. Let's put it that way. What are these? They're the Madison points. Okay, those are usually Mississippian terminal lake woodland stuff. There is apparently what they call a Steve Kisker component on the site. Steve Kisker equate that to Mississippi. It's the same thing. In the University of Missouri Anthropology Museum collections in Shippey's 1954 collections, I found these. These are all shell-tempered sherds. These two appear to be radian-sized sherds. So we got a really good component. Then in 1937, Whaley excavated this thing. It's 27 centimeters long. It's made from what they call Smoky Hill Chert, which comes from the north central part of Kansas. When Whaley talks about it in his description, he says it's got polish on it. So this is probably a hoe associated with that Steve Kisker occupation. This was interesting. Okay, so this is one that Shippey recovered from Pit B in 1954. If you take and eliminate, fill in that, and down here, it's a Snyder's point, a middle, common middle woodland point type. Now, he calls it a turtle. Does anybody know any turtles with 6 legs? It doesn't make sense to me. But if you look at it, the opposing notches are symmetrical and placed in such a way. I think somebody's practicing making notches or learning to make notches in these things. And you can see that in other sites as well. This particular piece is housed at the Missouri Historic Society. Again, it's just a biface that's just been notched like crazy. Interesting thing about this one, Heather. This is from the Marlon Perkins collection. Do I remember Marlon Perkins?
Oh, yes.
Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom.
And WK.
Apparently, he was an artifact collector. And he got this somewhere along the line. Unfortunately, all we know is it's from Missouri. We don't know what component it's from. Nothing about it. However, we see again these notching on bifaces. These are from the Packer Mound, but this one is known to be a Middle Woodland mound. This one, this also comes from Renner site. It was an eccentric picked up by a guy named Harold Palmer. Palmer gives it to Shippey. It winds up in the Shippey collection. Shippey writes a note about, oh, Harold found this. And he found it on the east side of Renner. Now, this could be the same sort of thing, but I think that looks more like a turtle looking at anything else because there's a nice little curved tail going on here. Edge. But again, it could just be practicing doing things on a foot. Now, in a letter to Smithsonian in 1937, Shippey says, my companion once picked up a chip of obsidian at Renner, but no artifact of that material has been found. Now, remember, the Middle Woodland Hopewell people, they're well known for using exotic materials from all over the place. So obsidian is not local. So at the museum, St. Joseph Museum, in the catalog, there is a description of one obsidian flake found at Renner site. So I went out there to look at some of this stuff. That's the one artifact they couldn't find. So that black square represents an obsidian flake that you can't see. Copper. We got a whole bunch of coppers coming off. A whole bunch, but a lot. Well, good quality. Coppers come off of here. We got Old Renner, who is Gary Renner's great uncle, found a copper pin. We got Wade's copper ads for 37. That's that object. Radel in full 54, got some sheet copper, and then he also got a spatula shaped rod in 54. Gary Renner got a 4 centimeter copper pin from that feature that partially asked me to read on it and finishing up. And then in 85, he got scrapped copper from pit 5 in his garage. And in 86, he got this 15.7 centimeter copper awl. Now, if you come across copper, please don't do this. Gary didn't like the green corrosion on it, so he scraped it off and cleaned it up. do not do that. This was interesting. In one of the bags from Missouri, University of Missouri Anthropology Museum, this is from Shippey's 1954 work, I found this piece of marine shell. This is a piece of giant Atlantic cockle. That's what a giant Atlantic cockle looks like. Unfortunately, the only provenience we have is the site. We don't know where he picked it up on the site, if he dug it out of the pit, nothing. So it's kind of in it. It could be historic, it could be from the Mississippi component, it could be earlier, who knows. But it's cool because it's the only other marine shell found in Kansas City Hobo context was a helmet sail from the Trowbridge site, which is about 6 miles away from this place. I looked for use of giant Atlantic cockles and archaeological recovery from other places. The only one I found was in like South Carolina, but it was from a Middle Village site. Now, I have a mystery. You can help me with maybe at some point. So, in a letter from Shippey to Whale dated November 3rd, 1937, I mean, he's reading this letter, he's going along, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, he says, I think the charred fabric McWade found on the road at the Renner site came from Spiro, Oklahoma. And then nothing else. Okay, what does that mean? So, what does he mean when he says that? Because it came from Shippo. It means it came prehistorically, or was it something that came recently? So all I can find out about Kenneth McQuaid, well, a little bit, was that he was a Kansas City artifact dealer. And he goes to Spiro in December of 1937. Now, was it the Pomo Mining Company, who had been looting the Craig Mound, had left in November. So he's there a month after they're gone. He collects material, including fabric, which he later sells to a guy named Trowbridge, the Trowbridge site, who in turn donates it to the Smithsonian. And if you go through the catalog, some of that fabric is marked as charred, so it is burned. The problem is, Shippey's letter is dated November. That's a month before McQuaid goes there. So we're still stuck. Did McQuaid actually recover fabric at Renner, or did he find it at Spiro and later claim it was from Renner? So any help you guys can give me on McQuaid or his collections or anything, we really appreciate it. It's great to find out what was actual fabric. So, what's the most significant find we got on the site in its history? And that's from Gary Brenner's garage dig. And you can see there's an arc here of stone-lined posts. Okay. So when you put those on our big map,
Gary Brenner is an amateur.
Yes.
Not trained.
No, he was trained. He told me he went to Jay Shippey's house every Saturday for 5 weeks to learn to be an archaeologist. So he has some training. But he is a meticulous note taker. Unbelievable. Every artifact has an index card that he's pulled off that site. Whoever has to put that back together is going to be crazy. But anyway, so we have an arc of posts, right? So if you have an arc of posts, you want to figure out how big the circle is. You pick 2 spots on the arc, and then draw a perpendicular line. Then you pick 2 more spots and draw another perpendicular line. And where they cross is the center of the circle. Okay? So from that, you're able to produce a circle like this. That circle is almost 30 meters in diameter. That's way too big for a residential structure. This is something special. It could enclose something special. It could be just the enclosure itself is special. The ground within it, who knows? But there's something different going on here. And I like to think that maybe this is the reason that people keep coming back to this site for 300, 400 years. There's something special about this location. Now, I could be completely wrong. It could be something like that. only further work will tell, right? Further investigations. So that leads us to the question, what's left of the site? So, in actually, when, as defined, it's 23,325 square meters. That's the size of the site. Of that, 9,063 have been destroyed. That's all the red. The road, the buildings, the utility line, and the house. So far as I can, best I can calculate, 825 square meters have been excavated. That's about 6% of the remainder of the site. Of the original site, only about 57.6% remain. So it's slightly over half, almost 60%. But I think it's enough and it's preserved that it can help us in the future to begin to address questions about the site itself, its organization, as well as more information about the Kansas City Hopewell in general. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
These people are called the Hopewell people?
It's a culture that we defined. It's
We don't know if they call them that.
no. It's a lifestyle of artifacts, decorations, and styles that you see spread across most of the eastern United States for a specific period, usually about 100 BC to about 400 AD. And they're all interacting during this time. And there's the thing that was called the Hopewell interaction sphere. There's some backlash against that now. That all those exotic goods and those designs are moving amongst all these people in the eastern United States. Because that copper's coming probably mostly from Minnesota or from drift moraines in northern Illinois. The obsidian's been traced back to Yellowstone. And the marine shells all coming from the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic. That stuff's moving.
So the Hopewells have disappeared like the Mississippians.
Well, they haven't really disappeared. The culture has disappeared. The people continued on to something else. They became Lake Woodland.
They became what?
Lake Woodland. They changed you see this transition of what happens is things no longer become important. It's one way to think about it that way. There's not spending a lot of time decorating pottery and carefully making tools and worrying about trade. They're making crappy points and crappy ceramics. They don't need to anymore. There's something that changes that is no longer important to them. And they stop that lifestyle. Agree, more or less?
Yeah, and so the terms like woodland and Mississippi, and these are terms that we archaeologists use,
Yes.
who don't know what they call themselves. And so the middle woodland includes the Hopewell cultural tradition and all their exotic stuff. And then, like you say, by late woodland, a lot of that exotic thing kind of diminished, and then it flourished again during Mississippi. And so there's kind of a period in between the Hopewell and the Mississippian. There's still people living, probably descendants of these people who were there, but we don't know just what the connection is.
The American Indian, when the Columbus discovered America, or when the Mayflower came to America, there are American Indians, the different tribes that we all know. Did they exist during this period or the Mississippian period?
Probably. But one thing you learn in studying anthropology is that tribal unit, that's a very fluid thing. It splits up, becomes other things, it merges, it becomes something else. Over time, you cannot say, okay, that's an Iroquois, or that we're digging over here, unless it's a historic site where you knew when our Iroquois village was. But once you get past the historic period, because of this splitting and dividing and joining, you can no longer trace that tribe as a unit.
So these people were the precursors of what we call the American Indians today.
Yeah.
But they didn't have the tribal structure that we knew when we started colonizing.
Right. It's not the same as when we got here. It's something very similar, I'm sure, but it's not the same as when we got here. That was found when the first Europeans walked on the continent. Because that was a moment in time, right? And before that, it was this and that, and it merged. You can't trace it. So that's why we use these generalized terms like Lake Woodland, because they're following a cultural pattern. They make their ceramics the same, they make their points the same, they make their houses the same, they live in the same kind of style. Hopewell, same thing. It's just a pattern of life that they're living. Yeah.
When the city built that, was that a municipal City Hall. That seems pretty late, I mean, it seems not that long ago.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, they made no effort to try to make an archaeological dig?
There was no section 106 trigger. Okay, so 106 is the federal law that says if you're gonna use federal funds, you need a federal permit, you gotta do a cultural resource investigation to make sure you're not destroyed. That's a city project with city money. They didn't have any federal triggers for 106. They didn't need to do cultural resource investigation. However, I think they caught enough flack from it. That's why we got called in this country.
Yeah. You would have thought there would have been enough information that at least before they actually bulldozer find someone, you know what, I think people are.
They actually fenced it off and kept the area out of it. They wouldn't let him on the property.
Even though he arranged for them to buy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and almost, yeah.
The Hopewell in Ohio were known for their geometric earthen structures. Is there
Right.
anything like that in the Hopewell over here?
Gary tells me a story. It's a story that one of his great uncles used to plow a field that was less than half a mile from this spot. That had a big circle embankment on it because he remembers going over behind the plow on the horse, going over there. And he has a big chunk of. Normally I would say it's daub. It's fired clay. It's about that thick, about this big crude. But he says it's from there. So he claims it to be his big dance floor. But I've looked at it, LiDAR and all kinds of other stuff. And unfortunately, it's been developed. So it's some of the parking lots now. That's my idea. You don't see a lot of earthenworks. Actually, get this way. There's Golden Eagle. It's a large circle. It's considered to be middle woodland. Where Illinois and Mississippi meet. Once you get past that, it's mostly mounds, but not earthworks, which you measure earthworks. One thing you do see out there is what they call these stone vault tombs. So they're building these stone, they look like a dome. It's a solid rock, and then there's a square hole in the middle of it with an entry pipe. And that put the processing bodies in there and they find area. And you see them in the Kansas City area, you see them in Missouri, central Missouri, and there's a few in the Illinois River Valley. So it's one tradition of tie on. But what's the tie? The rivers. You could jump down in the Illinois Valley, come down the river, jump across to Portage de Sioux. It's a mile from Mississippi to the Missouri River. Portage across, jump on the Missouri River, and head to Kansas City. Lewis and Clark went from St. Charles, Missouri to the Kansas River in Kansas City in 32 days. That's a blink of an eye. That's not, it's travel. And that's what's going on. So the question becomes, what's keeping them connected? Because if they're developing the same, ceramics go like this, and point styles stay like this, and they don't change, or they change together, that means they're going back and forth a lot. There's a lot of communication happening. So what is making that communication happen? And I think it's either kinship, either fictive or real. Married my sister for that chunk of Lena. And now we've got a family tie between the Illinois Valley and Kansas City and the relative, because it's relatives, right? Children, new grandbabies, and everything else. So there's a lot more traffic, I think, going on than what we really do see. That's just my opinion. Anything else? Yeah.
I think a couple times earlier, I think you mentioned the Edwardsville something.
Phase.
Phase. Is that related to, does it, okay, I kind of think so, but.
Yeah, I did that too. That's good. Here's the judge. Okay. Well, thank you very much.